Welcome to our next show. We have a fantastic guest for you today. Tata, are you excited?
I am so excited.
What are we talking about today?
We are going to talk about love. Men. Those beasts of burden that we have to have in our life.
Love in our life after 40 or after 50. And we have our special guest is Renée Piane, who is the love designer. She's a love coach and the author of 2 books. The latest one is Get Real About Love.
Yes. Yes. The secrets to opening your heart and finding true love, especially for women over 40 and 50. Many people are reinventing, and that's what I help people to do, to reinvent their love lives.
How perfect are you for our show today?
I know. She is the virtual love guru.
It's true.
Right here.
29 years.
Wow.
29 years.
And you know what? So I talk about Jim all the time. We talk about Ben a little bit, but Anita's more shy than me. And you know, you've met Jim. Jim is not shy. So he doesn't mind me talking about, I've talked about his scrotum. I mean, everyone's okay with that. Even Jim.
Well, as long as you're fascinated with his scrotum.
I forgot what episode we shot. Well, whatever episode we talked about, I was looking at the skin sagging on my elbow, and I was like, that looks like Jim's scrotum. It's weird how
I don't even want to look at mine.
Look at Joe's scrotum, and then...
Yeah, you're right.
That's like the new thing. We're going to have to do like...
We call them scrotum elbows. And that's,
it was one of my bitch
aside
fights.
from the sagging kneecaps, that's the telltale
The skin on the elbow. It's like one of those things after 40. But so Jim actually went through one of your courses because in LA, you were one of the people who actually brought speed or rapid dating to the scene here.
Yes,
you did that a long time ago, and you were one of the first people doing that. So let's start off with the earlier part of your love coaching career, doing the speed dating.
Well, you know, it's so interesting because I was my parents were in the catering business, so I was a bridal consultant, and I would meet with all these brides, and I'd be like, why are you marrying Bob? And they'd be like, well, it's been 7 years. I might as well do it. And my dad was catering the weddings. I'd meet the families. And then I would be like 50%, no way these people are going to stay married. And that's how it started, as a beautician, listening to people's problems all day long. Mm-hmm. So I became a marketing person, and I was doing television back in Delaware, where I'm from. And then I decided I was going to take my booty out to California, just like everybody else, wanting to bring my expertise here. And someone asked me to teach a class at the Learning Annex. I don't know if you remember. It was a magazine with all famous people who had written books, to do a seminar for single men about finding love after divorce and dating. That was in 1992.
Wow.
So when I went into the room, I was shocked. There was filled with lawyers, doctors, businessmen. And, Jim came, it was after that. He came about a year and a half later.
He was in one of your seminars.
He was in one of them. But I wasn't teaching the whole thing. But what happened was the men were all raising their hands, asking me the questions instead of the male who had invited me as a guest speaker. So at the end, I said, well, come and talk to me and I can coach you. And there was no online, nothing back then. There was no internet.
Prematch.com.
Nothing. This is way before that. So these men piled up, and this guy goes, you're taking over my life. Like, this is my class. And I said, well, I'm sorry. They want to talk to a woman. So the light went off, and I thought, you know what? I'm going to coach men, because I already had done that. And I thought, why not do that? So I came back twice, and he fired me from volunteering. So I got fired, and then Learning Annex called and said, we're getting calls about you. Can you come and teach this class? And it was called The Smart Man's Guide to Dating, Attracting, and Understanding Women. And that's the class he came to. Oh. So I got turned in. My friend got fired. He got fired, and I got hired. And that's what started my career. So then I went around the country, called Men Across America. So all you ladies out there, men have not had official Prince training, according to all of my thousands of people that I've worked with over the last now 30 years. And the women that are 40 and 50 that you're here to talk to
are fine-tuned females.
Fine-tuned females are a little more fine-tuned than some of the men. So that's what I'm here to share, a lot of my expertise, and then from working with thousands of people at Rapid Dating. It's been like it's a mission for me. This isn't just a job, this is a mission. So your sweetheart, who is a very attractive, very successful businessman, had enough smart brains to come to learn about how to meet beautiful women, and look who he got. Right. I mean, oh my God. And he's really handsome. But when men get hurt, and this is important, when men get hurt by a woman, they are so private about their affairs, and women think that they have this like book that gives them this training. They don't have that. They golf. they have sex with women that they're attracted to, and they don't look into it before. They don't do an examination like we do, and they don't have buddies to talk to, especially successful guys that all the women, the savvy women are looking for these super successful guys.
Right.
And some of them just follow whatever. They don't have any guide. So I became the female voice of powerful women, teaching them. And it has been my mission for years.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And I have helped thousands of them. And he really listened, and he really prepared himself for a dynamic, powerful woman. I said, we want you to know what we want. What do women really want?
Right.
So that's what I am. I'm a voice. And I work internationally with a company that sends men around the world to meet women, and I coach them every week all over the world.
That's fantastic. And I think it's because women, we express ourselves constantly. We have a sisterhood,
Yeah.
we bond. Men don't have that kind of rapport between each, they talk about the sports, the game, the this, the that, and half of them end up dating women much younger, just
Yeah.
because you said it's physical for them. They're
But the
not
women
looking.
over 50, there's a gorgeous, we live in the city of beauties, and the men are like, oh, I have to have somebody 35.
Yeah.
These men go around the world to find wives in Russia, China,
I know.
and I work for these companies.
Right.
And I'm like, hey, you need to get friggin' real. You're 70, and you think a 25 or 30-year-old supermodel in Ukraine is going to want to run and, give you sex and take care of you when you can hardly walk up steps.
They want
come
maybe
on.
they
like,
want a green card or
well, they
immigration,
do,
right?
and some of them do. But some of these men that are in their 50s, they'll go over there, and then when they see the women, they're in their 30s and 40s. They think they're like women here. You see women that are in their 40s and 50s, and they look like their 30s and 40s because of people like you guys. Beauty, Jill, keeps them in shape. Women are not like they used to be. 30, 50 is 30s. 50 is the new 30.
We have Botox now.
A little Botox, little help, but I'm talking about attitude, energy, keeping that sparkle. And a lot of women get pissed when they don't get what they want. But sometimes the most beautiful women sometimes are the most insecure women, I find.
That's true. You know what gets to me is, and I wanted to know your feelings on this. I see a lot of men, in our circle of friends that are getting divorced, and the men are always going for a younger girl. And I know men in business that are 70 that are having children.
That's right.
Because they've married a girl who's 30.
Yep.
And I just don't know how that lasts. What are you doing, at this point? Having a child at 70,
My
you're
dad
gonna be
was
90 when it's 20, if you're still around.
My dad was one of those guys. He was
Right.
56 when I was born, and I was with his third wife. I'm from his third wife, and then he still got married again to a
Right.
fourth wife.
Now, if you look at what she just said, okay, women that grow up in divorced families, which right now I'm doing a whole TED talk about the power of your love lineage, right?
Really?
All of us have imprints from our mothers and fathers. So when you see a father that has 3 wives, you kind of wonder, am I going to get married to somebody that's going to dump me for the next one and next one? So little Jill, as a little girl, had a little imprint, just like little Renee did, that said, well, maybe I'll wait,
Yeah.
And I waited and waited and waited, and then I kept meeting a series of men that were players, like my great-grandfathers, my uncles, my great-uncles, and, a lot of men in my family were cheaters. So I grew up around that.
boy.
So
Yeah.
when you think women that are out there, you need to look at the men you're choosing and how they were raised, and then look how you were raised, because you may have heard it from your grandmother like I did. Be careful, they're going to lie, they're going to cheat, and they're going to deceive you. Now, not as a 6-year-old with my Barbie and Ken, that is not good imprints.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's what I talk about in my book, Get Real About Love, because people see somebody, they see the sparkle, and they see the prince, and the light goes off. They drop their panties after a couple tequilas, and then they call me. They're like, I met my soulmate. I said, well, have you met his mother? I look like a Jewish woman. I'm Italian, but many men in Los Angeles and different states, you got to look at religion, you got to look at values, you got to look at the family before you do anything. And most women don't do that.
It's a whole package.
It's
Oh,
a package. You're marrying. If you really want real love, you found out about Jim over time, that he's really real, that he has a good, solid foundation for work. He has a good work ethic, good family, I suppose. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
He's from Iowa. That says a lot.
Yeah.
And he has no baggage. He came clean You
And
know,
he was
no
never- I-
previous marriages or
Yeah.
I met him in his
families.
late 40s, and
Yeah.
he wasn't married yet.
So
He
she
never had
lucked out
married,
with
never had
that.
kids. Yeah. Well, because the last couple of relationships I had some baggage, and I just thought I want to be with someone without baggage. So is it right for us, like, at 35 is when I became serious about looking for my relationship, and I think I even knew you around then.
Yeah, you did.
And so
you were a little bit of a wild child.
I had just come back from 2 years in Colorado where I was like, I was literally a monk. Like
Yeah.
for 2 years, I took a job there, and I walked away from a relationship where I was engaged to a much younger man, and so basically I didn't date or anything for 2 years. So when I came back to LA, I was a wild woman.
I remember.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa, right?
Yeah,
And
so-
she's like, oh, I just dropped off Todd, and now I'm going to meet Steve. And
I know, I was
and then
just-
I would meet like one for one drink, and then later she'd toss him aside. She goes, I have another date. I'll never forget that dinner that we went to, and you had one guy coming and one guy, and you're like, okay, it's time to go because I have a date, and the guy's like, like a puppy.
She's our little Hugh Hefner reincarnate.
The inventor of rapid dating, you get it.
Oh my God. Well, I was rapid dating. You were rapid dating. You were rapid and I watched it in action, and I used to think to myself, I wonder what her dad was like. I did think that when I met
yeah?
her. Yeah. I
Oh,
did.
he was an asshole.
Yeah. Well, most women that have asshole cheating dads or grandfathers, it does go through the lineage, especially if they're, Latin or depending on the culture. Now,
He was a religious Jewish guy.
Yeah.
Total asshole. It's the opposite of what everybody would think.
Yeah.
Because everyone wants, the Jewish dad doting on their daughter. He
Yeah.
left when I was 3, could care less.
Yeah.
Didn't even put me
But
in
if
his
you
will.
look at your dad, he probably did not have good role models. Most people get so mad at their dads or their grandparents or whatever. But when I looked back, so my book is the research of what I did to figure out why I had a huge wall that allowed assholes to come over the wall, but not good men. I was bored with the good ones, and the ones that were half available, it's because a part of Jill was half available, right? So most women that are in their 40s and 50s, if they've been hurt a few times, the walls get higher and higher and higher, and then their expectations get higher and higher and higher. And then the men that they meet, even if they're gorgeous and hot and they have the best ass in the world and they look great and they got their Botox and they got everything, they still have an energy vibe of unavailability because of their perfectionism of this has to be this, and they come up to a list, and I go, what are you what you're asking for?
That's what I was going to ask you. Is it right that we should make our pro and con list? Because I was very diligent. I mean, sure, I was serial dating a lot of people, but that's
And
because
gorgeous people. Gorgeous men.
They
I
weren't
saw
bad.
some of them.
They
They were
weren't bad.
handsome men,
They weren't bad.
and so is your sweetheart. He's
Yeah.
very handsome.
Thank you. And they weren't bad. And as licking, but I was serious. So I was, trying to just, if there's going to be shit that I got to weed through, I want to find out early on. I wanted to jump in and see if there were any red flags. Only because I was at that age where I'm ready now, and so I don't want to dick around.
But most women that are in their 40s say to me, well, I want to have a kid. They're not even dating. They
In their 40s, they
in their
wanna have a
40s,
kid.
they're like, I'm ready to have a baby now. And I've been sleeping with Johnny, he's 12 years younger, and I finally realized that maybe I wasted 8 years of my life, and now I'm serious. So what can you do to help me? And I said, well, I'm ready. And they hurry. They want it to be fast. They want it to be like rapid dating, like meet them, pop out a baby by the time you're 41. The reality of that happening, ladies, is, and then they say he has to be single, he can't have any kids, he can't have this. They have all these lists, and you almost make it impossible because he has to be tall, and he has to be fit, and he has to have money, and he has to have no baggage. So you add up all those things, and they're limiting themselves. And often they may even have someone in their past that was in love with them, or somebody that they already knew that they dismissed when they were younger that could still be madly in love with them. And that is something that I hear over and over with women 50 and 60 even, hundreds of them actually, because I encourage people to look back at your patterns of love.
Really, look back.
Look back. Be your own love investigator. It's a fascinating book, and it's my story. When I went back to the men, I bet you if you did this and you went back to all those guys that you were juggling them, right? They probably half of them weren't right, and maybe there was a couple really good ones that might have thought, she's not totally committing to me, I'm done, and they get rid of you, right? And I went back and they said that I was like I had a damaged heart. And I said, why would you say that? And they said, I don't know. You used to talk about this guy, Mario. Because men always ask women, many women get pissed, and I even have a blog about it. What do you do when somebody says, why are you still single? That's like the biggest pissy thing for men to say to a woman. You're beautiful. Why are you still single? And then you get this like,
is it a red flag?
No. If you have an insecurity about it, you might say, well, I just haven't met the right guy. But in your heart, there's like this pain. Like women go, God, I went out with this really great guy, and when he asked me why I was still single, I felt so sad. And I said, why? Well, I gave him the wrong answer, and I said, well, what did you say? Well, he kept bringing it up, like, didn't you have a serious any relationships? Didn't you, blah, blah? Because a lot of people don't want to waste their time if you're still upset about past stuff. So there was a man who lied to me for 3 years when I was 32 when I dated him up till 36. And I always had a sense that he really wasn't all in, and I knew it intuitively. Most women, when you look back, if you really, and I make people do this in my sessions, I said, let's write the list of every man you dated. Was there a thread that they were all sort of alike? And they usually go, yeah, but there was all these good guys too, but I didn't want to have anything to do with them. I always went with the asshole. So there's a reason that happens.
I went kind of back and forth. I was like, well, this guy's a little too much asshole. This guy's really, really nice. And I made the list of the pros and cons of each guy.
Yeah.
And
you changed. I saw you change.
Okay.
You went from being man-eater, kind of a man-eater. Oh, here she comes. Watch out, Jill. Here she goes. She'll chew you up, right? And so you out. But you'd be surprised. And it's interesting because when people read my book, I say, let's list every guy you ever dated, every woman, man, whatever. Men do it, women do it. And then they end up running into somebody and they'll go, let me ask you a question. What was it like to date me back then? And guys would say, you were so sweet, but I was a player and I knew I'd hurt you, so I didn't stay, number one. The other ones would say, oh my God, I met you when you had just broken up with Mario and you just kept talking about how he lied and cheated and you were still in pain. So I wasn't interested. So women do not realize the things that come out of your mouth.
I stay friends with a lot of my ex-boyfriends for this very reason.
This is what I don't understand. I close the door, walk forward, I move ahead. Jill keeps contact, even with the guys that were shitty to her. She's like friends with everybody.
Because every person I've met in my past moved me forward.
They did.
So I don't have any resentment against any of them. It's like I found Jim because of everything that happened in the past.
Well, that's a good way to look at it. But not everybody looks at it like maybe you were the one that dumped them. Usually when the person leaves someone, you don't feel as much of an attachment, but sometimes the other person does.
I just feel it's case closed, move on. Like I lived that part of my life and it doesn't matter who did what. I've moved on and I've grown. I see it as a growing thing.
Every guy that's ever broken up with me has tried to get back together for some kind of booty call.
They always
want to get back together.
Well, that's
and
normal.
I'm like, no, it's good. This was good. We'll stay friends. It's good. So, I mean, it was to me a red flag. It's like, if they want to get, I guess it wouldn't be a red flag because I did get back together with one of my exes and the same thing happened. We broke up twice and then 3 weeks later I met Jim.
Yeah. It is a distinction. It's like a distinction once you make up your mind, because what busy, powerful women do in television, and you've been in television all these years. I was on all the talk shows. I'd go. It was all women producers. And they're like, well, how did you find your husband? Oh my God, I'm 42 or I'm 45. And I've been I call them temps. A lot of powerful women have temps, which is a lover on the side while you're waiting for the new Mr. Right to come.
Exactly.
And that's sort of what you were doing. As far as when I used to see you, I used to think, oh, this is just a fix. So whether you call it shopping or gambling or love or casual sex with a guy that's really hot, and they go, well, he's just somebody that is my space filler until I meet my husband. And I said, well, okay, you work 50 hours a week, and then you have and then you go out, work out, and you do your yoga, and you do blah, blah, blah. And then how many hours out of the week are you really looking if you got your your screw buddy,
fuck buddy,
on the side.
We're not on network television.
I'm sorry, it's not like it's an hour out of your day. He spends the night, and then you don't see him for a while, and then he slides in on the weekend, and then good old Steve that you met at the networking event, who really likes you. You're like, oh, I'm busy Saturday. Oh, I don't have time on Sunday, because you got your temp coming over to give you a little relief. So that guy, after 1, 2, 3, times, he doesn't call you back, and then the guy runs into you, and you're like, well, what happened? You never called me back. Well, you blew me off 3 times. Men don't like rejection. If you want to meet a man, you got to let him know up front, I really like you, and I want you to call me. My husband, you met my husband
many times.
Okay, well, the only reason I met him, I was running rapid dating all over the country. I had men coming in I had men in Arizona and Philly and Miami. I was meeting men everywhere. My mother's like, when the hell are you going to slow down and find someone? I said, well, I know now that I'm ready. I knew I was healed from my past because I had done all the work that I teach in my book. And then I really put together like a vision of a family man that wanted to deal with my big, huge Italian Guido, in-your-face family. And they're very loud. And that was very difficult. A lot of men would come to my house. My brother's like, are you sleeping with my sister? You better not touch her. If you hurt her, I'm going to kill you. My dad would ask them, interrogate them. My aunts would interrogate them because they were all divorced so many times. They had fear for me. So when I met Joe, he was in the middle of his second divorce. He lived 3,000 miles away. Wow. And the only reason I even met him was because my mom died and I slowed down for 2 weeks.
Oh, boy.
So usually women will wake up for something, and I ended up meeting him. But I was seeing a guy during that time before she died, and he wasn't being honest with me. And I was really serious, like you were, about getting married. Once I decided that, when I met with guys, I said, listen, I'm looking for a long-term relationship. I don't know if it's with you, but I just want to know where you're at. What phase of love are you in? Yeah. So girls, listen up. Don't think that just because somebody says, well, I just got divorced, but I've been looking for love, or I'm separated. Now, Joe was separated. He was out of the house. He was done with his ex. I actually did her hair for her wedding. I knew her.
Not her wedding to Joe.
No.
Okay.
But he was married before, and I was being warned from everywhere. He's married. He's never going to want to do this. So I said to him right up front, what love phase are you in? Because I'm looking for a long-term relationship. He said, I will never, ever, 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 ever get married again.
Really?
And then I looked at him, and you saw him. I mean, he's a beautiful man. First, I met him when I was 22 years old at a wedding, who I did the bride, his cousin, and I saw him, and I shook his hand, and I said to her, I'm marrying him someday.
Wow.
And then 20 years later, I ran into him because I had moved away to California, 3,000 miles away. So when I saw him again, I felt the same feeling. And I said, well, I told your cousin I was going to marry you. And he goes, that's never, ever going to happen. And then I touched his face, and he's a foot taller than me, and I pet his cheek, and I said, what a shame that you're limiting yourself. I said, because you've never met anybody that would love you the way that I could. And then I said, and it's a shame. And I said, so I'm not interested. And he goes, can we go on a date? And I said, let me ask you another question. How many women are you dating right now? Because you're in the middle of healing your heart. And he said 3.5. And I said, is it the top half or the bottom half of the half? I said, which part of it do you eat? Do you bite on?
It's mostly the bottom half.
I said, listen, you're talking to, and I had just been in the paper in my hometown, and he saw it, and he goes, I know what you do for a living. I've looked you up. And he goes, are you analyzing me? I said, yeah, I don't want to waste my time with somebody that I already know that I think I'm going to marry. And then I kept tickling his arm and everything. And he goes, well, can I at least take you to dinner? I said, yes, but we're only going to be friends because I don't want to share you with 3.5 women. So he kept coming out. He had business in California. It was a miracle how it happened.
Did he ever tell you what the half was?
I didn't really want to know whether he was feeling her up or feeling her down, but I know that he had interested women because I told him I would have dinner with him, and that was it. And I of course was like going, oh, I want to jump this man. But
He's the whole package. He really is.
He's beautiful. I
Yeah.
mean, he's a beautiful inside and out
He
guy.
is.
But he comes from a big family, 6 kids like mine. He was used to loud families. So he kept flying out. He worked for Oracle in California.
Okay, right.
So it was a miracle how it turned out.
Well, only you could pull together that miracle. Were you going to ask her
No, I'm
something?
just saying my husband comes from a really big family like yours and like
Yeah.
you do. And they're loud and vicarious and emotional and joyful
Yeah.
and everything else. They're very tight together, knit. We are the ones who live out here. They're all back in Canada or New York. And I am an only child who comes from a long line of only children. My mom was an only child and my dad has one brother. So
Wow.
I could hear a pin drop in my house.
So
And
what was it like?
It was, an adjustment. I'm still, I get always like, I have to adjust myself because I'm not used to that, As a kid, I probably would have loved that because my house was so quiet. And it's just so great to see all this stuff going on all the time. There's always something to watch, it's entertaining. And, they're very connected and they help each other. And
What nationality are they?
Well, they come from, his parents came originally from Morocco, and then
Right.
they moved to France,
Uh-huh.
and then they immigrated. When they had their 3rd kid, I think they immigrated to Canada. So my husband was born in Canada.
They're Sephardic.
They're Sephardic, and he moved to New York for a time in his life. He went to school in Switzerland, so he was disconnected. He was the one that was most disconnected. That's why he lives out here and he does his own thing, because he's sort of very independent, and he always was independent. He went to school in Switzerland when he was, 11, and then he lived in New York for 6 years.
Yeah. So how did you meet him? I'm curious now.
Well, we met back in Canada. We were really young, and then he was living in New York at the time, and then we actually each had relationships. I mean, he was marrying somebody that he had been known since school, and I was basically in a long-term relationship at the time. But I was the kind of girl that said, I'm not getting married in my 20s. I'll consider it in my 30s. I knew I had the plan set. I was, I wanted to build myself, and I was very independent that way. So I was always known as like the running bride. Like the minute they would drop that bomb, you want to get married, I'm out of here kind of thing. I'm not ready.
Yeah.
I really needed to take that time. So anyway, we reconnected later on when he was
this
separated.
is the thing about women that are older. There's a lot of men that you may have met when you were younger that could
Right.
be divorced now, right? Like
Right.
my husband was. And a lot of them are, I have to have a man that has no kids, no this. I'm like, well, good luck with that.
Right.
The baggage is there.
Yeah.
And you just have to see where they are in the phase of that
Right.
lifestyle.
Right.
And so Joe had a lot of shit to go through, and it wasn't easy.
Does Joe
but
have children?
He has a son. I always knew that I really did not want to have kids
How
after.
come?
Yeah. that's interesting.
Italian. I'm Italian. I was being totally pressured. I did have a high school boyfriend for 8 years, and he was a drinker and jealous, and I was very popular back in Delaware. I was like the big social director of the whole town and put people together, just like I did here. And he hated it, and he hated my psychic abilities to be able to see into people. And my dead grandmother appeared at my bed and said, "Do not marry him. He will keep you restricted for the rest of your life." And it was true. And then when I was a little girl, we had a woman that worked for us that she said, you're not going to get married until you're old, and you won't have children, and you'll marry a man that has a child. And so that is exactly what happened. She was a very spiritual person who really guided me to listen to my soul. And I knew that from watching, my mother had 4 sisters who were all divorced. My great-grandmother had 23 pregnancies, 17 living children. They were all married and divorced. And then my grandmother was divorced twice. There was so much divorce and infidelity that it scared the shit out of me to have kids, to see my aunts, my beautiful, gorgeous aunts struggling, and they would say, "Don't you let this happen to you. You better make your own money." So I became an entrepreneur when I was 6. I was like lemonade. I was selling lemonade.
Sound like me. I thought
babysitter.
They're putting on shows for the your area. Like we have little skits and charge everybody. And
I didn't start working until I was 14. I guess I was the late bloomer here.
I really loved working. I was so lonely as an only child that it was a social event for me. I'm going to go work. I'm going to do something. I want to make money,
But the Wonder Women of the world, the women who have tried to achieve a certain level of success, this is what I see in my work. I work with high-powered speakers, even movie stars, and I'm not allowed to say who, but when they get hurt or they see imprints from the mother and the grand, it usually goes back to 3 or 4 generations. Like even the cheaters, when you look at the cheaters throughout my family, they learned from their grandfathers and their uncles. And in my family, that was like, hey, changing your underwear. You know, you get a girlfriend, what's the big deal? And in Italian, they call it a puttana, which is the whore.
Exactly.
You got the whore, and then you go to Italy. I go to Italy with my parents with a Catholic school, and the lady on the bus says, today we're in Roma, and on Sundays the husbands are with their children and the family, but on the rest of the week, they're with their girlfriends.
Exactly.
She's saying this on a bus,
Right.
and I walked up and said, there's 50 nuns on this bus. You can't say that. She said, that's how it is in Italy.
It's like
that.
Most of Europe.
I'm one of the top experts in the world about dating. Italy, women aren't getting married. They're stopping getting married. Greece, it's happening all over the world. It is it's epidemic because they're not having children, and now there's not going to be a future for their country with no children
Until the men put their dicks back in their pants.
Well, I mean, it happens in France. It's happening, all the European. That's why women say, "Oh, go away and get my groove back with somebody in Greece." The Greek men aren't exactly faithful either.
No.
And the country is having trouble financially. So I look at countries, and I'm working internationally with people that have imprints from their families. Our generation is the life changers. But you look at our moms, okay? My mom was in the 50s. I was born in the late, right into, I'm older. And I'm telling you how old I am. But my mom was a 50s mom. It was like, leave it to Beaver. Let's make everything perfect.
Everything's nice
and
nice.
everything you pretend. And everybody pretended. And then I was sneaking behind the wall listening to the real shit. And I got damaged. None of my other brothers and sisters heard what I heard or saw what I saw. They only found out when they read my book. Now it's opening up secrets in the family of shit from my great aunts to my great grandmothers.
Wow.
My grandmom, who told me that men were liars, had 2 husbands that cheated on her. She ended up on her deathbed telling my sister to tell me, tell Renee I lied. I did have a lover. Once I found Grandpa cheating, screwing a woman in a restaurant one day while I'm waiting for the pasta to come. I heard him in a closet. She said, I decided what was good for the goose was good for the gander.
I am all down for that.
Grandma had a lover for 20 years.
Why keep it a secret?
Because the sisters, all my great aunts. So she dies at 88. She tells me all the stories of her mother and her sisters and the 17 kids and all the so the only way that I could escape was to get married back then. But she forgot to say that she had found real love and warned me never to trust anyone, right? As she's dying. So she tells my sister, and it turns out that Anthony, the man that she loved, asked her when she was in her late 60s to move to Florida with him, but she lived downstairs like the movie Moonstruck with Cher.
Families all together.
And she said, if I would have left, I would have lost all my grandchildren. It would have caused a scandal. So I said no. So at that age, I was in my teens or whatever. She was crying for years, and I would go down and I'd say, "Why are you crying, Grandmom?" And she said, "I just don't know if I want to live anymore because he left."
No.
Now, I tried to find out who he was because even at that age, he was still alive when she died, and I never got... So I went back to my great aunts and said, I found out the secret, right? Can you tell me who? And they all denied it. They kept the secret. They hid the secret.
Wow.
Well, our generation is much more about honesty, I think. Well, maybe the younger generation, but Tata and we always talk about, like, brutal honesty. Like, can we just be brutally honest?
Right. Jill can be brutally honest.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit more padded, I guess, in the way I
Not
come
me.
across.
When people hire me, when people come to see me, I'm like, okay, if you hire me, Bob, or mostly men, I said, I'm going to be brutally honest with you. I'm going to ask you a lot of questions to help you see why you're meeting women that keep leaving you.
Yeah.
Usually it's a damaged little boy inside from the mother saying, you're never going to make it. You're an asshole. You're blah, 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 whatever. I can figure it out and be getting real with them. And it really helps men wake up. Many women say to me, I've done all this work. And I said, well, if you're still getting the same result over and over and over, then you haven't healed that little girl inside of you.
Yeah.
And that is what I help people to do. It's pretty powerful.
Well, you have an incredible story, so you can really see through all of the bullshit since you've clearly been through everything.
Well, the reason that I feel when people read my book, they're like, oh my God, I feel like I'm you. Like, they feel like they know me because I'm nobody perfect. I'm just a woman that wants what every woman wants, but I have the balls enough to say what happened to me and how I dated player after player after player. And most women that come to me, they're like, well, I keep meeting the same guy with a different penis. And I'm like, well, it's you. If you keep meeting the same type of person, then you need to look at yourself. And it's looking at the woman in the mirror. It's being honest and getting real with your heart.
What you're attracting.
When people come, I say you need to vow to yourself, I'm going to be honest. And most of the women are in their 40s, 50s, and 60s. And I've helped thousands of them get married. They go, oh, I'm an impossible case. I'm impossible. Nobody can deal with it.
Do they wear that as a badge of honor?
Well, they think it's cool. You know, like one woman, a good friend of mine, Teresa, who you know, she sent her best friend to me, and her name is Melinda. You may have met her. And she goes, I'm an impossible case, and if you can fix me, it'll be a fucking miracle. And I said, okay, I'm good. I'm into miracles because I've created thousands of them.
And you have one.
And I have one.
Yeah.
But the only reason people believe me now is because I'm happily married. I've been with him for 16 years, going on 17, married. Yeah. And we get married every year. And I make sure he's committed. And I'm like, listen, if you want to trade my ass in, I'll trade your ass in for two 25-year-olds. So I'm really into spicy. I'm into being sexy at any age. And women are so beautiful these days, and they have all these options. There's no reason why you can't find love except your mind. Right. So you need to change your mind. You need to take a look at how you're marketing and packaging yourself, and the shit that comes out of your mouth. Because if you go to your friends, all the men are just assholes, and they're I mean, I'm in line at the grocery store, and let me just tell you, the best place to meet men is at between 7 and 7:30 at the grocery store.
I always tell that to my husband. I said, the only time I get hit on is when
at
I'm
the grocery
store.
And I went one
like
night.
hell. I'm wearing sweats and no makeup, and
men don't care.
No.
So I go to the grocery store one night. I had just done a podcast or something, and the women were like, where do you meet men? I'm like, at the grocery store. So I leave to go to the grocery store. I had my phone, and every aisle had a guy with a little basket with his steak or his fish and his broccoli or fried food. You can tell like how they eat, what they're eating, and if they're alone, right? And I'd walk up and I was walking down. I go, ladies, if you're here, if you're looking where men are, they're at Ralph's or Whole Foods, or they're out eating at a bar at happy hour. You are stupid. Get your ass up, get dressed, and go out. So I went down the aisle and I said, here's a man, here's a man, here's a man. And the women were like, oh my God,
True, though.
Men are everywhere. Women go, there's no men anywhere. I said, well, get up earlier and get out of your sweatpants and go to the coffee shop down the street from wherever you live. Your husband could be anywhere in the circumference of your house, but most people are too lazy. And most women just get all dressed up to go to a party or whatever. But you can meet a man anywhere.
I know.
Anywhere. Airplanes, airports. Walking into a takeout place for healthy food. I meet men at home. I meet men now, and I'm married.
Yeah, I think it's the most unexpected places that you probably meet the men, like you said, the grocery store, and you're not even trying. You're not even made up or anything. And when you try, and I find when I put makeup and all that, I must be intimidating because nobody approaches me when I'm all natural and greasy looking. And
but that's why I say the most beautiful women sometimes are the loneliest because men are afraid to approach you. So it's up to women, just like I did with my husband. I said to him, it's a shame, but I've always been very attracted to you, and it's a shame that you're not ready because I'm in a different love phase. And I walked away, but I let him know I liked him. So he didn't have to chase me. Women do now with the Me Too thing. Women are like, men are such perverts. No. If you're wearing a slutty dress and a man, comes up and says, wow, you look hot, you wanted that. So, and all these women that went to these meetings and, got screwed by whoever did whatever they did, you showed up, knowing sort of it was risky to show up at a hotel room to have a meeting.
Right.
Get real. I mean, I know that the men did certain things. And
especially if the man has a reputation of doing that and you're walking in knowing full on, this is what he does. And
I believe in the Me Too thing and being honest and everything. But now I talk to men every single day. They're like, I'm afraid to say hello. I'm afraid to compliment a woman because she's going to say I'm a pervert. If you do not send clear and I'm talking 3 clear green light signals to men, they probably are not going to approach you at this point in life.
Oh, wow. That's really interesting.
Well, I think the Me Too movement, where it's helpful, is back in the day when I was working fresh out of school, and, I got my degree. And then, it was very clear that men would make it very clear to you that if you wanted that promotion or you wanted that job bad enough, what are you willing to do? And it was almost verbalized, like, are you going to have drinks with me tonight? This wasn't a professional meeting at night. It's like, no, I'm not having drinks with you tonight. I'll send my resignation. Thank you and goodbye.
So that's smart. That's the good thing about the Me Too movement,
right?
Is that
so we're
men now
from
know
that. But if I go in and I know what I'm going into, and then I complain about it after, well, hello.
Many movie stars do admit that they slept with people to get to where they are.
Well, it was sort of
I'm sorry, but a lot of them did it and didn't get what they really wanted. Now they're pissed.
Yeah.
And now they're Weinstein was a pig, and there's a lot of other pigs.
Right.
I had it happen to me. I didn't call out the guy that tried to screw me in his office. He was an entertainment attorney that said I could help you, and a publicist that tried to do the same thing.
Right.
I'm going to help you if you give me a blowjob in your living room. Well, who gives a shit? Get the fuck out. Get out of my house.
Why is it men that do this? I mean, women don't do this to men.
Yes,
as
they
much.
do.
Yes, they do.
I've never come across it in my profession.
Well, that's because they're not hitting on you, the women.
No, but they're not. I don't see girls hitting on other guys for their job.
They should. Look at you.
Well, now you're beautiful.
No,
Both of you girls are. No, but
I'm blushing.
But beautiful women, men feel. I got to tell you, even some of the most powerful men get into. And look at my husband. As handsome as he is, he grew up and he was with 2 women that were very possessive of him. They would not allow him to speak to a woman, to flirt with a woman, to say hello to a woman. He was restricted in his life. And I said, I teach flirting classes. I'm on television. I said, before you get involved with me, come and see my life. It's not normal.
Yeah.
I don't have a normal life. When you run speed dating and you're doing love panels and vision board classes, I said, I have a busy life, and let's see if you like it, and so you should show your life to somebody before you drop your panties. You should let them see and find out where they live. There's so many guys that I dated that said, oh God, you're so beautiful, blah, blah. They said all the right things, didn't know where they lived, where they worked. And one guy was hot, had a Lexus, beautiful suits. And he goes, let me invite you to I said, I want to see your house before I get involved with you, John. Mm-hmm. You are hot. I mean, he was really fun and charismatic. He had a futon thrown up against a wall with dust.
That's a guy.
He had his curtains were sheets with nails in the. And I looked at him, and his kitchen was a mess. He had poop in his toilet.
Yuck!
And
oh my God!
And I walked into his house, and I said, I can't believe that as
polished as he was,
polished as you look,
right,
that you live in this dump with cat towers and your kitty litter boxes were full and they smell like crap. I said, first of all, I'm not staying here. Second of all, you might need to hire me and I'm going to redo your apartment. So that's what I did. I redid his whole apartment, and then he ended up getting married, and the woman called and thanked me.
Awesome.
But I'm not getting involved with that. And
but you know what? There's a difference between a guy who doesn't know how to decorate well and then personal hygiene. Yeah. If he's got poop everywhere or whatever he's got,
busy because I'm just too busy, and he was a busy guy.
Hire a cleaning
hire $45, $50, $100 now,
once
$200 to get your house clean.
Yeah,
but as you can tell, I'm Italian, so it's like, get real. So men like that. Men like direct, but they don't like bitchy. They don't like bitchy. They want somebody. You can lead a man with your feminine energy, and women are tired of it. So
now you sound like my husband.
Yeah,
that's what he says.
What?
Exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, her feminine energy. Yeah. I have very masculine energy.
Well, we both do. I do as well.
He loves that,
but
femininity.
I switch. You got to switch.
You do. You have to know when to turn it off.
You have to know how to switch gears, and it isn't easy for. So all the Wonder Women, they're like, "How did you meet your husband?" I said, "I have to switch from." Being power Wonder Woman. When I speak, I wear a Wonder Woman cape. I come out, I go, how's your superpowers going for you? You can't find a real man, right? They don't like it. You got to take the cape off, switch into that gear, and sometimes it takes meditation. I do processes to literally think, oh God, I got to switch out of everything that I just did today and then be present with him, you know, because he's my husband is like your husband, probably a businessman. Your boyfriend or fiance is a businessman. they want somebody to come home to that isn't going to go, rah, 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 rah,
Oh my God, that you might as well just throw them out the door at that point. They're gone.
And you know,
they're looking for comfort.
They want comfort. They have a little boy. If you can tap in to the little boy in every man,
definitely.
That's the secret.
Oh, absolutely.
If you can tap into that, because they go in, if they're working on a deal and it's not going through, just like us, if, you know, you're working on a TV project, and I've had so many TV projects, and you get all the way to the end, and then it doesn't work out, I'm all excited, and then I feel like this, why wasn't I good enough? And then he'll go, oh, you're so amazing. He'll support me during that. I do that for him. He's got multi-million-dollar deals, and then sometimes they don't close.
Right.
So he needs me to nurture him and switch into that gear. And sometimes I'm in the middle of a project, and I got to go look at myself. I'm like, okay, Renee, it's time to take the cape off and switch into Joe's wife. Right. How do I do that?
Nurturing.
You know? Nurturing. I have a whole article. I have it when couples are out of sync.
Yeah.
You know, when couples get out of sync, you have to, we are in charge of putting it back in sync.
And I was always telling Jill this, I say, when you're too abrasive with a man, they recoil. They won't actually open up to you.
That's true.
So you need to let them come in and feel that safe spot. And it's kind of a maternal instinct that women have of how to mother somebody without being a mother. You just want to be a soft pillow to lie the head on when they need that.
But you probably had a good mother. If you've had a bitchy mother, it's not easy.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of that, but I definitely
But women have that maternal
it.
thing. I mean, you know, I was lucky. My parents were, you know, the only people in my family who didn't get divorced were my parents. Everybody else in my family have had multiple marriages and affairs or whatever. My parents stuck together, and then my mom passed. So that was the only thing that separated them.
Yeah.
But I was brought up in a very healthy family, and I was so dysfunctional in relationships for some reason because But
you may have heard your aunts or seen your aunts. My aunts were the ones.
Grandparents.
Grandparents. So when you look back at the love lineage, it's the key to seeing how a man or you were wired. So you have infidelity in your family, and there's still, I don't care how much success I've had, little Renee occasionally pops up, and I get insecure. And, you know, my mother-in-law just died, my father-in-law just died, and Joe's family thinks I'm a little out there. And I don't really give a shit. That's why I don't live there, okay?
Right.
But they do have judgment about my healing processes and the stuff that's in my book because it exposes my family.
What's his background? Like,
he's Italian and Irish, but they're very East Coast. They're very traditional, and everything is just proper, and you pretend like everything's okay.
I hate that shit.
And I'm not into it. And that's why I moved.
We talk about that all the time.
I'm not into it. So I am me, you are you, I accept for you. This is what I said to them. They excommunicated us from the family for 1 year because of the way I was loving their father and their mother as they passed. And I'm a very nurturing, healing type person, and it was very painful for me to be around people that were judging me loving the way I love. Now they love more restrictive because of the way they were raised.
Right.
And I was raised to hug and touch and be
very
loving.
emotional and
you know, I do, you know, healing work, pranic healing, and I'm a hypnotherapist, and I was using prayer and meditation with my mother-in-law, and I'd send her all these meditations to heal. And they were like, why are you sending her that? It's just, you know,
witchcraft.
I'm a witch. I'm a witch girl. I'm a witch girl. And so, yeah, I've been called that. That's why I moved away, because when I worked there at the salon, I used to get calls for, can I talk to that girl that gives intuitive readings to people? And my cousin's like, what the fuck are you doing here? You're giving people are calling for their hair and readings, because I would touch people and be able to hear.
Yeah, great concept.
And you know, I'd touch their head and open their heart. They'd open their heart to me. And that's really where I knew my mission was, to move away and be in a place where I was accepted. And I don't care what people think at this point in my life.
Good for you.
We've had that whole podcast about should we give a shit what people think.
No,
of course not.
Be yourself. The people, even if you're a career woman or whatever. But when it comes to men, take a look at how, if you listen to the things you say, and maybe you can ask your girlfriends, do I come across as a bitch? How do I come across? If you ask people that really love you, they're going to be honest. Or if you really need a get real reality check, call me. I have a one-time 90-minute, get my book and read it. And most people call me, they're like, holy shit, you made me face my shit. And I'm like, well, if you don't, you're going to be 60 and still doing the same.
Right.
The same guy with
change.
a different.
Right.
Well, what do you think about opposites attracting?
I think it's very well possible. I mean, it isn't about being the same. My husband is a super jock. I'm athletic, but I am no way as I mean, he's obsessive compulsive about himself. Now, interestingly enough, both of us had health issues at the same time. He dislocated his shoulders, 2 shoulders.
Oh my goodness.
In 1 year, he could not work out for 1 year.
That's terrible.
So he did not have shoulders. Now, he's a big, huge, buff bunny, as you know. He's huge, he's gorgeous, and it affected him. And I said, you are not your body. You need to heal your shoulders. If you go in and try and do shoulder stuff and chest stuff, so he lost his chest muscles and his shoulder muscles, and people are like, oh my God, you look so skinny. Oh my God.
He can work on his abs and his ass.
Oh, his butt is as hard as a rock. So he had like these muscular legs and this hard butt and the skinny. So it's been 1 year. And he has gotten himself back. So the other night I was looking at him and I said, oh my God, Joe is back, and he's like, yes, because people that work out, they have a, you know what it's like. Even if you gain a little bit of weight. Now me, I got an aneurysm from a tooth infection.
It's crazy.
Almost lost my arm and my hand. This hand doesn't function. So
yeah, you have nerve damage in your arm.
Total nerve damage in my arm, and I had my artery cut out, so I have no blood going through it, so I get cold. So what happened was my whole autoimmune system got attacked, and I got to see what the fast pace of life was like because I'm in it. And when I slowed down, that's when I thought, oh my God, what do I have to almost die to see it?
Right.
So wake up, everybody.
Yeah.
If you want love, you got to make it a priority. You got to carve out time out of your day in your schedule, men and women, to either get somebody to help you like me to look at how you're marketing and branding, because everybody right now, they look at your LinkedIn, they look at your Facebook, they look at everything you're doing on the whole world. They can see all. So if you got bimbos on your Facebook and your LinkedIn, you look like this really cool guy or a woman that's got her shit together. Then you got like young guys like in your bikini with your ass up in the air. You're not going to get the same results. Then you look at your profiles online, and I read people's words. You got to realize when you are online, which is the number one, whether you're on Tinder, any of the new apps, there's millions of different ones, the Union League of their own, all these other leagues. I help people to look at how their pictures, their words are algorithms that get sent out into the universe. So if you only have men write, looking for a great woman to spend my life with, that's not going to get you results. The reason guys don't get results is because they don't write enough.
That's what I met Jim we got double matched on eHarmony and on chemistry.com. So we're like, I guess we have to meet. But
it's because of the words he wrote.
He was so funny. And I'll tell you the most important thing, and I don't know if he learned this from you, but the one thing that caught my eye that I'll never forget, other than the fact that he was very funny, is that when he wrote age range, looking for a woman of a certain age, most guys and he was in his late 40s at the time, turning 50, most guys that age write, girls 21 to 35. They don't come anywhere near their own age range. Jim wrote something like 30 to 60.
Yeah, open. He was open.
Wide open. I was like, I've never seen any man around 50 years old say that they were open to dating a woman who was 60. So I'm like, I just have to even meet this guy.
Right.
But you know why? Is because when I taught men, I said, you never know if you meet a woman, even if she's not the right woman, if you're smart and you're kind, and you, like at rapid dating, people would come and they'd look around and they'd be like, ugh, no one's here's my type. I said, guess what? The person that you meet here could have a friend that could be your wife or your husband. So the more open you are, and then if you say that you're open, then that opens up the whole world to you. Don't limit like what you think you want.
Yeah.
And so when he came, when I taught men, I said, listen, if you have just this certain range, you're leaving out a whole bunch of other women. So even if you date somebody that's 50 or when you're 45 or whatever, you could meet somebody through her, or you'll have an experience. Just be open. Like, I'm like a totally open. That's what I did. I dated younger and older men and different men. And then I thought, well, I know I want family first. Right? Family was number one for me. I said, I have a Guido family that I love to see, and I go back and celebrate Christmas. And I said, how do you celebrate holidays? I ski every year with my buddies on New Year's, and I'm like, next.
Yeah.
You know, I dated a guy that was so awesome, and he still says that he was in love with me, but he was a triathlete, and I love jocks like you do, right? And I loved all these jocks, and a lot of them are narcissistic assholes, some of them, bodybuilders, etc. So he said to me, I get up at 4:30, I swim, and then I ride my bike for 25 miles, then I'm gone 2 weeks out of the month to triathlons. I said, we're not going to get along.
He's married to his sports.
So I said, you and I are not going to get along.
Right.
I said, you need a triathlete woman,
Yeah.
you know. So but I was so attracted to him. So could I have gone down the lane of having an affair with him for 6 months? Yes, and had fun. 6 months out of my life wasted. So if you know thyself, it's all about knowing yourself as a powerful, beautiful woman, looking at your assets and saying, am I really presenting myself in a way that's open? Because if you have a passenger remaining in your vehicle, or somebody that's holding on to your heart, or a lover that's sort of hanging out from the past and you keep seeing them and sleeping with them, you're not open. So you need to call me and I'll hook you up and help you get real.